My human self presents to me many challenges that burden me. My heart center shines and calls to me. This is who I choose to be. Sometimes lessons.
Welcome to the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. This is Penny Fisher, and we are so glad you are joining us for this week's episode. Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hope you're all hanging in there, having some good experiences with the work that we kind of played with last week, this idea of working with your ego, right? I'm Penny Starhart. We're going to dive in today into a topic that kind of continues what we've been talking about, loving ourselves. But first, I just wanted to kind of check in with you, see how everybody's doing with this work with your ego, right? I'm hoping that you're able to be in a space of more awareness, right? Notice when that inner voice, that inner judge, that inner critic pops up. And then I'm hoping that you're having some time playing, like really being playful, with ways to send that ego self, that judge, that inner critic, love, right? Because it's just light that's forgotten that it's light. So I gave you some suggestions last week, but with everything that I say, and I don't know that I've said this or say it enough, take whatever I'm offering and then go play with it. Like, make it yours. You can't get this wrong. This is all about you and your journey, and that's what matters the most. All right. Beautiful. So as I was thinking about what we wanted to talk about today, I kept coming back to this recognition that in just about every single episode, if not every episode that we've dropped so far, we are talking about ways to navigate what we call heavy emotion, right? The emotions that are part of our human experience. They're nothing to run away from. They're nothing to shy away from, but sometimes they're really tough, right? Fear and greed and judgment and anger and resentment and all of these kinds of emotions. So what I'm thinking today is that we spend some time talking about what, for me anyhow, is the foundation, the underpinning of any practice that involves working with these heavy emotions. And for me, that foundation is about learning to love ourselves deeply, without reservation, the way that Source loves us. And if this is the first time you're tuning in, when I refer to Source, I am talking about whatever way you experience Source, and that will be unique for you. So you can substitute in God, Creator, Creatrix, all that is, the universe, however you experience Source, okay? So I am going to wind around a little bit, and I'm going to come to two exercises that I think will help you with this. They've certainly helped me tremendously. They're deceptively simple, but incredibly profound in their potential. Okay. So as you settle in, I want to just remind everyone who is driving, walking, or engaged in an activity that requires undivided focus to please make sure you are staying focused on the task at hand. Even when you're doing that, however, you can join us in settling in with some breath. So take a moment now and just breathe in through your nose. Beautiful, deep, long breath, drawing it all the way down into the bottom of your torso. And allow your exhale to also be through your nose and let it take just as long as your inhale did. What we are doing here is oxygenating our bodies. And when we send oxygen into our bodies, when we oxygenate our cells, we send the message to our bodies that our bodies are safe and that it's okay to relax and to receive. And that's what I would like you to do now for the next half hour. Just take some time for yourself. So I am tickled pink to be starting today with a channeled message from one of my guides. I do not have words to tell you how dear this being is to my heart. Her name is Lady Nada, and she's actually the very first ascended master who ever came through to me. Way back when I was starting this work. My gosh, I thought I had lost my mind, but nope, there she was. She is truly as close to me as my own breath. I experience her as pure divine feminine love, power, wisdom. And this particular message came through to me while I was meditating a couple of years ago. But I really feel that it speaks to what we're going to explore together today. So here is her message. This is what she says to us. She says, "Let us speak today of your heart. The human experience is one of disconnection and journey home. Although it can feel painful and numbing and overwhelming, there is great grace in the learning and remembering. There are, however, forces at work which would keep you from this journey of remembrance from a place of fear. Think of those forces as lost and frightened children. These energies mask their fear by seeking power and control over others. This makes the journey harder as the veils become thick with stories, layers and layers that do not contribute to the vibrant fabric of your lives, but instead are as dull and lifeless threads that dim your loving light. Because you create your reality through intention and attention, these forces would have you focus on this somber and misty quality. And because you see with your mind, you desperately seek to understand the disconnect between this cloth and what you feel to be your true experience. For you do experience brilliance and connection and love every time you give and receive love, or hear a loved one's voice, or see a blue sky, or listen to music that brings you joy or energy or release. And it is here I would like you to rest, dear one, in the experience of the heart. Your heart seeks only to return to its natural and ancient state of oneness and grace. And so it will not lead you astray. I connect you now with your heart, for your heart knows, and this you can always trust. I know you, and you know me, and we are one, child. We are one. I am Lady Nada." So take a beautiful breath and let those words, and there's always an energetic encoding, right, that is part of these channeled messages. So don't worry about understand. I should have said this episodes ago. Don't ever worry about understanding these channeled messages with your beautiful, logical, analytical brain. Just let the words flow. You'll understand it at a cellular level in whatever way you need to, right? Okay. So Lady Nada talks about this somber and misty quality that our egos will bring up to shield us, right? Like we talked about last time. These are the smoke and mirrors, the games that we play with ourselves, that our ego plays to cover up these places where we really don't love ourselves. And listen, I could spend the next half hour, 20 minutes reminding you over and over again that you are love, that you are of source, that you are truly an aspect of the divine. And it would be my honor and my privilege. And it would be yummy, right? And affirming, and it would make us feel just lovely. But then we go out and life happens. And while I know that I am love and light and a divine aspect of source, I have to be really honest. There are times when reminding myself of that truth, it's just not enough for me to shift. I can't shift the funk or my behaviors or the judgment I feel toward myself, right? At least not when I'm in those really tough places. I sometimes feel like it's my default setting to just be on the lookout for everything about me that is unlovable, right? And again, we talked about this last week. That's the ego at work, trying to keep me safe, right? And like a really concrete example of that, right? I was on a call the other day, and a Zoom call, and in the call, somebody gave me a lovely compliment, and I immediately shifted and made it about all of the work that someone else had done. And on the call, one of my coaches called me out. And she said, stop avoiding compliments and own who you are. And man, she was right, right? How easy would it have been for me to have simply acknowledged the compliment and said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And then I could have gone on and acknowledged the other people, the team that created the space where I could be amazing, right? But nope, I just brushed it aside, right? Pay attention the next time that someone compliments you. Just pay attention to how you respond, right? Because usually we deflect, we explain how the compliment's not true, or we give credit to someone or something else. Oh, Penny, you have such beautiful hair. Yeah, no, I just decided to wash it today, right? Like we do this all the time. What is it with us? Why is it so hard for us to love ourselves? Part of the reason, as we talked about last week, is our ego. Because if we believe we're not lovable, then we can't fall from grace, so to speak, right? We can't go from being lovable to being unlovable. If I started unlovable, I can't go down. So the ego keeps us in fear, keeps us seeing and experiencing ourselves as unworthy, right? As unlovable, because it's safer. It's just safer. And what we do time and time again is we give our power away. So instead of choosing to love ourselves unconditionally, instead of being really content and in deep and profound loving relationship with ourselves, which is easy on the good days, not so easy on the not so good days, right? We choose, and again, this is part of the human experience, so there's no judgment here. We just want to be aware of our behaviors so that we can change them, right? We enter into relationships with other people and other things. Now, listen, I hope you know me well enough by now to know that I am not saying that relationships are bad. Actually, it's the exact opposite, because where we're heading on this journey together is into the remembering that we are all connected, that we are actually all one. I mean, relationship doesn't get better than that. But in our human experience, very often, those relationships become unhealthy. And they become unhealthy when we allow them to define us. Just like we talked about with ego last week, we find ourselves needing validation from outside. We look to what other people think about us, and we choose to believe that that's who we are, when in fact, it has nothing to do with us, right? We have a friend, and he's been working with this mantra: what other people think about me is none of my business, right? Last week we talked a lot about content from a book called The Way of Mastery, and in The Way of Mastery, we're reminded of this, and I quote: "The egoic consciousness, as you well know, plays itself out through the forms of special relationships. You have a special relationship with your spouse, your lovers, your car, your boats, your automobiles. The world is the reflection of the belief in the need for special relationship. The search for that is the restlessness that you feel, for you believe that you are separate and alone and apart from all others." And in my edition of The Way of Mastery, that's quoting across pages 210 to 211. Okay. And so when we externalize our need or our understanding of ourselves, right, when we don't believe we're enough, we actually see ourselves as separate, right? If I'm in a relationship that sees a me and a you, or an us and a them, I've created this sense of separateness, of separation. And as we know from last week and even the week before, that is an illusion. We are not separate from Source. We are created of Source. We are that energy. But when we believe that we're separate from Source and from other human beings, there is a huge trap waiting for us here. And that trap is the energy of comparison, right? You want a shortcut to not loving yourself? Start comparing yourself to others. Right? The more we need to compare, the more we feel the need to prove that we're enough, the more we do it, the more it's an indication that we have places within ourselves where we don't love ourselves. We're waiting for somebody else to tell us that we're lovable, right? We're waiting for somebody else's approval instead of feeling it inside of ourselves because we love ourselves so much. And listen, I know the whole inner child thing has become something of a cliche, but I have to be honest. In the work that I do in energy healing, working with clients, doing my own work, I'm telling you that inner child space is where most of our wounding comes from, most of the places where we throw up the shields because we believe we're not lovable. And true confessions here, I feel incredibly blessed to have had what I consider to be a really happy childhood, right? I had a loving family. I had loving parents. I have so many joyful memories from being a kid. And yet, as I have done more and more and deeper inner work, I have realized that I have some crazy wounds that come from messages, especially from my parents. Now, most of these were unintended or well-intentioned for sure, right? But these messages from my parents caused me to believe that if I wasn't a certain way, my parents wouldn't love me. So, for example, for better or for worse, I was the kid in school who did school really well, right? It just worked with my brain. It's not that I'm smarter or better. It's just my brain gets the way school is structured. And that was that way for me for a lot of things in life. But somewhere along the way, my parents said something, did something that conveyed this expectation to me that everything for me was going to be easy. And that I got this impression and developed this deeply held belief that if I wasn't good at everything, my parents would be disappointed in me and wouldn't love me. Now, listen, whether or not that was true, it felt true to me. And so it became my reality, right? I developed a personality that couldn't recover from mistakes, that hid what I perceived as failures. I was afraid to try anything new because I was terrified I might fail. When I look back on it now, it was not a pleasant way to go through life. And I share this with you because as I navigated those places of holding judgment toward myself out of fear of not being loved, I learned a thing or two. And the most important thing, and I mentioned this a minute ago, is that none of it was ever about my parents, right? It was always about and continues to be about how much I love myself. To be sure, it is a journey. I am still on it, 100% a work in progress, aren't we all? But I had to start somewhere. And so one of the places that I started was by doing one simple thing every single day without fail, something I committed to. And it was easy because every morning when I would get up and get ready to go to work, I was in front of a mirror, right? And while I was in front of that mirror, I would pause and look into the mirror, but like really look, not just, oh, does my hair look okay? Is my makeup okay? But I would look into my own eyes as if I was looking into the eyes of a friend or a loved one or a child. And I would tell myself this: I love you. You are beautiful and you are enough. It sounds simple, but I am telling you, it is hard. I invite you to try it. Even if you're well along on your journey of self-love, give this one a go. Let it be part of your daily routine. And the way that you do it and the way that you speak to yourself will actually transform as you continue with the practice. You might find yourself having some really intense aha moments. You might release emotion. You might even get this glimmer of bliss, right, that we've talked about, that comes with the realization that what you're saying to yourself is actually true. And when you really fall in love with yourself, it'll take your breath away. And while you're working with that, I invite you to develop a second practice to kind of change your factory setting. And this practice allows space for grace, especially when we make mistakes. So what that looks like in our everyday lives is this, right? When you've made a commitment in the morning to be a certain way in the world, you've chosen to be somebody who, say, only speaks kind words or doesn't lose your temper, whatever it is. And we don't meet our expectations, right? We don't make the cut on that day. One of the first things that happens is judgment toward ourselves. And what I'd like you to start to do is just notice when that judgment arises and pause and breathe and say to that feeling of judgment, judgment, here you are again. What are you here to teach me? What you'll notice is you're able to start to replace that default typical response, right? That usually sounds something like, oh, geez, I can't believe I did that. What's wrong with me, right? That's how we tend to respond. Start to replace that with this childlike curiosity, this wonder, this playfulness. And instead say to yourself, isn't that interesting? Instead of responding with kindness when the driver cut me off in traffic, I did my usual, right? I cussed up a storm. I wonder what's causing that to happen for me. I wonder what that person is mirroring back to me that allowed me to be triggered, right? And in that case, for me, it's usually somebody's not a rule follower, because I always beat myself up because I don't follow the rules. Well, why are rules so important to me? Oh, if I don't follow the rules, I'm not going to be loved, right? And we know from last week's conversation that simply by bringing our attention to something, we change our relationship with it. I'm going to say it again. Simply by bringing our attention to something, we change our relationship to it. So the simple act of noticing when our words or our thoughts are out of alignment with who we want to be, with who we choose to be, we actually begin to shift away from self-judgment, away from that reality we've lived in for so long that is characterized by feelings of unworthiness and anger. And we're able to move toward an openness that makes it easier for us to drop into that space of the Sacred Heart chamber. And if you've listened to any of these podcasts, you know what's coming next. We drop into the sacred space of the heart. We open the portals that allow us to access the flow of unconditional love of the cosmic matrix, and we invite it to enter. We work with that cosmic matrix energy. We co-create the container of compassion, and we invite the heavy emotion, the judgment, the contraction to just rest in that container. And we breathe, and we breathe, and we breathe. We hold space for our human experience, for the pain and confusion that leads us to not love ourselves. We let the breath lead us back over and over again into childlike curiosity. We still allow ourselves to feel the emotions, right? Even though that might really suck. We notice where in our body we're feeling those emotions. We use the breath. We send the breath to those places, to our shoulders or our backs or our solar plexus. We use the breath to send the love and the light of the cosmic heart into those icky, sticky places. We allow them to be infused, to be saturated, to be remembered back into the vibration of love, which is what they've always been. It's what they are now and what they always will be. And as we do this, we are reminded again and again and again of who and what we truly are. Pure power, pure potentiality, unlimited creativity. And I guarantee you, my friends, my dear friends, that's how Source sees you, because it's who you truly are. And it is my deep and sincere wish that you see yourself in the same way, through the eyes of love, as the perfect and divine being that you truly are, filled with love and light. I am so grateful to each of you for joining me. I am Penny Starhart, and this has been the Vibrational Alchemy Podcast. Until we are together again next week, remember that you are loved and you are love.
This is who I